It's 8 minutes past 4 p.m. Conversation continues. Many thanks for staying tuned. And the matter we'll discuss it next. Bandits, as has been advocated and clamored for by several persons, not a few actually. The bandits terrorizing different parts, the northern part of the country especially, have finally been termed or named or labeled, if you will, terrorist organizations, and we'll discuss the legal perspectives or implications of that at the moment. And you're welcome to join the conversation as well, most definitely. Let's take a look at the story from the perspective of Premium Times. Says story is captioned: Nigerian court declares bandits groups terrorist organizations. The Federal High Court in Abuja on Friday declared the activities of bandit groups as acts of terrorism. The verdict strengthens the call on the federal government to declare bandits ravaging the northwestern and the north central regions as terrorists. Mohammed Abubakar, the Director of Public Prosecution of the Federation, had filed an ex-parte application seeking to prescribe the grisly activities of bandits who have been waging a relentless war against ordinary Nigerians in northwest and north central states. The bandits have been vicious in kidnapping and killing their captives across Zamfara, Katsina, Kaduna, Benue and Sokoto states. While moving the application on Thursday, Mr. Abubakar informed the court that President Muhammadu Buhari had approved the prescription of bandits as terrorists. In his ruling, the judge, Taiwo, specifically held that the activities of Yan Bindiga and Yan Tada bandits groups constitute acts of terrorism. According to court documents, the federal government based its decision on security reports which confirmed that the bandits were responsible for the killings, abductions, rapes, kidnappings in northern Nigeria. Now, the government further blamed the group for the growing cases of banditry, incest and kidnapping to ransom, kidnapping for marriage, mass abduction to school children and other citizens, cattle rustling, enslavement, imprisonment, severe deprivation of physical liberty, torture, rape, sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, forced pregnancy, other forms of sexual violence, attacks and killings in communities, and unpermitted and wanton destruction of lives and properties in Nigeria, particularly in the northwest and north central states in Nigeria, carried out by Yan Bindiga and Yan Tada groups and other groups associated with or engaged in the same or similar activities as Yan Bindiga and Yan Tada groups in Nigeria. Well, just about it, and the legal implications once again is what we're discussing right now. Joining me in the studio for this conversation, Barrister Festus Oguche. Barrister Oguche, good evening to you. Welcome to Hard Facts.
Thank you a lot, Dayo. Thanks for inviting me.
Let's start this way. The last question I asked: what would be the implication of this court order?
Well, it has massive implications. It will give a very clear indication as to how government will have to be responsible to the dismantling of these terrorist groups. It will also add fillip to the action or initiatives of other groups and governments that are interested in dismantling the structures of terrorism, particularly within the country, and also buoy up the feelings of Nigerians that at least there's salvation somewhere coming. That's alone will also open up the doors for international intervention into these activities of these terrorists. But I only think that the action of government is coming in a little too late, and it doesn't require the Federal High Court to make that order before the government stands up to its responsibility to quell the activities of these terrorists, or maybe a label in itself does not change anything about them, because we also know that all through their activities these years, it's been nothing but terrorism, nothing more and nothing less than that. No matter the nomenclature you give it, whether it's bandits or brigands or whatever name you give it, it doesn't change anything at all.
Oh, there has been a lot of clamor from several quarters on the applying pressure on the federal government to declare these bandit groups as terrorist organizations way before now. This might come as something of a relief for a lot of persons, something of relief, of course. However, did the federal government need a court order before it can prescribe, or more specifically term these bandit groups as terrorists? Could it not have done that without a court order?
I think it's rather awkward, predicating whatever action the federal government to take on a court order, because it's just like finding a label to give an armed robber before you apprehend him. I don't think it's very necessary. These people are committing crimes, and recourse to the court order is totally unnecessary. I think it's a different scenario with that of the IPOB, because IPOB declared itself as a freedom organization representing the Biafran people for their rights, pursuant to their right to self-determination, and then it required that kind of prescription before the government can come with the kind of onslaught they came against it at the time. But in this circumstance, I don't see how a court order will do anything or maybe influence anything in the positive or negative direction in terms of the labeling, in terms of the action to be taken, in terms of the initiatives or the drive to get rid of these marauders and these insurgents and bandits and terrorists across the country. To await a court order in that direction is also akin to saying that I await a court order before the government can take care of insurgency, which is neither here nor there.
Well, I
don't know where they got that tradition from.
I do get where you're coming from, I suppose, and that is, once again, I suppose, that the federal government does not need a court order to tackle any kind of insurrection or insecurity under whatever guise.
Yes.
For example, I don't think the government would require a court order before they arrest kidnappers or try them,
yes,
or armed robbers,
yes,
or any other such criminal elements in the country.
Yes. So
to tackle the crime of banditry, as they were formerly called or formerly known, obviously no court order may be required. However, what this court order has done is to label them as terrorists. Is a court order specifically required for that?
Well, in so many ways, we've not had the opportunity or the privilege, rather, of having these people properly labeled, because in so many places, in so many ways, the authorities and those in government have been saying that these are not terrorists, they are bandits. I don't know whether there's any distinction between them, because they are all lumped together as acts of criminality that is subject to being crushed by whoever is in authority. But then terrorism, I think they are looking at it essentially from the point of view of the status of terrorism under international law and how it is avenged and taken care of. To label a group as terrorists makes them prone to attacks, probably from the international community, from the convergence of nations and all that, and a whole lot of things, including the transfer and the remittance of funds to them. And maybe that is the angle they are looking at. But I don't see any way to have any positive change in whatever modus operandi the government wants to apply in putting them in that direction. I think even if it's very, very important and necessary or an imperative for the government to be able to curb these activities, I think it's coming a little too late, because there has been so much cry that this people be properly labeled. But some people in government will tell you that they are not bandits. Don't call them bandits. They are terrorists. Don't call them terrorists. They are bandits. And in so many ways too. And if you look at the application they brought before the court, the Honorable Justice Taiwo, you discover that the application was brought by the Director of Public Prosecutions in the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, and he made application for the proscription of two groups alone, and those groups are not even known to us down here in the south. The ones we know here are the Fulani headsmen. We also know those of them that are bandits in parts of North Central. They go by those names, and they're not even listed. I think it was even the judge that went out of his way to generalize them, that all other groups that are involved in these kind of activities are terrorists, and their activities come under the list of activities that could be labeled as actions of terrors. But then it is not just expanding the frontier of what terrorism is or what it is not, but the determination of governments to crush it. That is what is important, and not just the labeling alone.
Could it be that the federal government, was trying to cover itself, so to speak, or provide some kind of leeway protection, such that if it had not gotten a court order and gone ahead to term these bandit groups as terrorists, could there be some legal implications whereby, who knows, after all, they do have, in quotes now, representatives such as Sheikh Gumi, and that's possibly even going to court to challenge the government labeling these bandit groups as terrorist organizations. Might that be the reason the federal government went to court to get this order?
You use the word leeway. I think it's a subterfuge. it is dawning on them that you cannot do hide and seek, you cannot play Jekyll and Hyde with this man. And it is very authoritative that all through the years, government seems to be very lukewarm in prosecuting these marauders, these bandits, these terrorists, whatever name you give them. And in several ways, there's been very, very big reluctance on the part of government to, in spite of all the cries all over the country, that please give them the appropriate name they deserve for the purposes of this and that, though I don't see it as being necessary or anyway. It's a subterfuge, like I said. Give it your word leeway. But I think it's government trying to window dress itself, so to speak, and maybe give the impression that it doesn't have its hands in all those pies. We don't have evidence to that yet, but then the fact that government has been clear-footed, not very frontal in its prosecution of these armed groups tells a lot of story about what I think. What actually must have informed the government's position on the matter is the dimension it is taking, and that is, it is getting to a particular level where you can no longer try to make excuses or justification for not giving them the appropriate level, and maybe coming under that level to say that you cannot take certain actions because they are not this or they are not that, which is totally and completely immaterial and irrelevant.
Do we have any antecedents on the international scene? Because terrorism is a global war, really. And so one group turned the terrorist group. I think in a manner of speaking, you can say to be persona non grata as far as the rest of the world is concerned. You're literally now public enemy or world enemy number, whatever number you are on the list of a terrorist group or terrorist organizations. We've had instances when members of the Committee of Nations, or the, as referred to them over here, the international community, refer to or term certain groups or declare that certain groups are terrorist organizations. Is there any antecedent? Do these countries go to any court to determine that this group is now to secure an order? Maybe at the Hague, maybe to get some kind of order declaring that
there's no such precedent. I don't think, and I doubt if there's a procedure like that even under our national laws. I try to rummage through the books to find out if there are certain precedents that maybe a procedure, a rule of practice that says that before you can give label to a terrorist group or a criminal gang, you first of all go and obtain an order of court, even though ex parte, and I find it difficult to get the answer. I don't think it is necessary, and all those other international terrorist groups that have been so labeled, Al-Qaeda is one of them, for instance, and then there's the Abu Hayat group and ISIS and the rest of them. It doesn't require anybody going to a court of competence to obtain an order. So at least the order has some effect. We were just talking about the leeway that has created, or the subterfuge it has gone, at least to paint us in very meretricious colors. It may not work at the end of the day, but what is important at this moment is our resolve to end banditry and criminality and terrorism and Boko Haram and herdsmen attacks. That's what is most important. It's not just the labeling. And going to court does not change anything. The order of courts prescribing the group doesn't change anything, because the group has never been recognized in the first place. And you cannot give recognition to a criminal group, and it doesn't require an order of court of competence to change the label of the group, or maybe to prescribe. It doesn't require prescription to crush a criminal gang.
Let's explore a narrative that you brought to the fore just a while ago. I used the word leeway. You prefer subterfuge.
Subterfuge, yes.
What would be, assuming but not considering that were the case, what would be government's end game here? Why employ subterfuge? Because declaring these bandits or so-called bandits as terrorists might be considered a popular decision. A lot of persons, both in the north and in the south, have been clamoring that they be labeled terrorists anyway. So it's a popular choice. It's a popular opinion. Why employ subterfuge?
Well, so a bit of legitimacy will come in here, because a lot of people, including myself, my very humble self, have been very expressing our misgivings over the attitude of government and its lukewarm disposition, half-hearted measures in getting rid of these criminals. It's been a long period of consolidation for them, and we allowed the thing to get to this very massive dimension that it's becoming totally uncontrollable. Just at the next door to Abuja, there in Niger State, they've virtually taken over most of the communities, and the governor is there crying. And it has gotten to that level where government will try to maybe bare its teeth a little bit and show the world, the international community or the citizenry, that at least they have something to do about it, or they are doing something about it. And that is why the question that was uppermost in the minds of people when the court made that was, why now? Why wait all this while? Initially it was in Zamfara and some parts of the northeast. Now it has spread all across the north central, and down here to parts of the south, the west, the south, and the southeast. So the dimension it has taken is probably the reason the government is now waking up from its slumber, or maybe changing its position from what it used to be, to show that maybe it's a government that is responsible and responsive.
Also, still exploring, why government may have taken this decision at this time.
Yes.
Could it also be a matter of prosecution? Possibly. I imagine we have laws that determine consequences for engaging in acts of terrorism, which might be different from if you were, say, a kidnapper, for example, or an armed robber. Might it be a case of that as well? Because upon apprehending these persons, when you want to prosecute them, what would the charges be if they have not maybe been if they have a court order determining that they were terrorists before? If you charge them to court, do you take court as terrorists or as bandits? Is that a possibility?
No, it doesn't. There's no possibility of that linkage. I don't see any nexus with that, because I think what informs a prosecution or a charge before the court is the contents of the criminality, the content of the crime, the nature of the crime. All these, they are all provided in our law books, the law codes, which you can always have recourse to if you want to give identity to a particular brand of crime, or maybe restrict it within a particular area. I would rather say that it's not just the idea of the labeling. If government is very serious on their part, just as you talked about the issue of prosecution, if government were serious, I think was it last year or earlier this year, some persons were arrested in Dubai and charged to court for terrorism financing in Nigeria. We expected a follow-up, nothing happened. And probably because of such an order of court, if a court order necessary and paid with the circumstances, it's not just those who are perpetrating the activities, it is even those who are financing it. And that is why your allusion to the issue of prosecution comes in. So for giving it that level, you not bring somebody who had not done something, or something that does not connote to terrorism, and charge for terrorism. Or somebody who had done something that amounts to pillaging or brigandage, and charge him under terrorism. But I think the labeling by the court will not affect the character of the prosecution. The character of prosecution is informed essentially by the activities of those at the point of arrest.
It is in fact 91.3 Nigeria infant here in Port Harcourt. Nigerian court declares bandits, groups, terrorist organizations. Mr. Festus Oguche is my guest, and I believe you're still sticking with subterfuge, I suppose.
Yes, subterfuge. I stick to it, yes.
We go for a break now. We'll return. Conversation will continue. You're welcome to join via the usual platforms. Please stay with us.
This is an infomercial. On 92.3 Nigeria Info.
Hi there, I've got information courtesy of Port Harcourt to the world for you. If you're an athlete or you belong to the Fit Farm Club, or maybe you just love to take, runs now and then, I've got a message for you, and it's about the Port Harcourt City Marathon 2021. So it's going down on the 11th of December, and it's a 16-kilometer race. So if you're interested, your motivation should not be just that you love to run, but there are prizes to be won. Now, if you come first, you get 1 million naira, 1M. Now, if you come second, you get 500K. And if you come third, you get 250,000 naira. And there are other prizes to be won as well. So you can take part in this if you're interested and register for free on this website, www.phcitymarathon.com/register. Registration ends on the 30th of November, so you should jump on this as quickly as you can. Now, this has been brought to you courtesy of certain people who came together to sponsor this. I'm talking about I Think Concerns Limited, Limewood Hotel, Rare Gem Engineering, Core Branding Services, Star Energy Nigeria Limited, and Kuwazobia Info. It's also supported by Sambas Films, Rotary Club Port Harcourt West, Media Works, and Penuela Events. So this December is not just a dirty December. This December, we get to run and stay healthy. And this December, we #run the city.
Information is a two-way thing. Nigeria Info, it's your turn. Let's talk.
And now, hard facts.
Hard facts with Dio.
Welcome back. Hard facts still. Nigeria Info here in Port Harcourt. I'm Dio. 25 minutes to go before 5 o'clock. Discussions continue. We got the news updated at 5. Before then, however, conversation with Barrister Festus Oguche continues. Nigerian court declares Bandits group terrorist organizations. Barrister Oguche, welcome once again.
Thank you very much.
Join the conversation right now, if you will. The lines are open. Call 0817 93 0002, 0817 93 0003 or 0007. WhatsApp is on 0809 0306416. We are live on facebook.com/Nigeria Info PH, and WhatsApp is on 0809 0306416. Hello, how's Frank to welcome?
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Go ahead, please.
This is Akuku from Abokete.
Go ahead.
So, for the federal government law and system to declare bandits as terrorists, this is a good direction, in a good position. Because, for me, these people have done a lot in this country, most of northern part of Nigeria. They have killed people harm their own legs, and other things. So they make this country safe. Not even, we don't feel happy in this country any longer. For the judiciary to declare the judge to declare the as a terrorist, I'm very, very happy. I'm just happy for it.
All right, great. You have from Michelle via Facebook. Barry piece goes, really? So it's not they realize that they're terrorists, but let's see if it can make any difference. But it's actually coming late. Hello, 913, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead.
This is federal government to declare bandit terrorists. I don't think that one is anything to. I think we are not supposed to be talking about, because it's just like telling me that I should go to court and see somebody that is stealing my property, that I should go to court before I call him a criminal. It doesn't make sense here. So I don't look like it's an action that, because someone is a terrorist. We are not talking about one that just working maybe disturbing neighborhood and so on and so forth. This is people that claim the life of so many Nigerians, and yet the federal government is going to court. Federal government again going to court to declare them terrorists. I think this is a form of democracy.
All right. Nice.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you're already trying there, but
You're welcome, go ahead.
this thing that our government is just playing, why are they afraid of them to declaring them terrorists? Why are they not pushing it to court? Because you are making the statement at that point that Nigerian court declare them terrorists. Why is it not coming by himself to declare them terrorists? What are they afraid of? What are they scared of? Why is it the Nigerian court that is declaring a terrorist in the country, which is supposed to be the government of the presidency? You understand? That's my thing. Bye-bye.
All right. Barrister, is that the subterfuge you're referring to earlier on?
Something like that, because there's nothing stopping the government from going ahead to declare criminal groups, or whatever label, or whatever name on nomenclature that they deserve. Going to court itself is like turning the other way in your search for the truth. Now they've done that after the terrorist groups have devastated almost the whole entire country. One would say that the action of government is akin to lock in the stead after the horse has bolted, which is neither here nor there. It's akin to placing the cart before the horse. The crux of the matter is that the government has its authority and its administrative survey to declare anybody a criminal, particularly if the person is seen committing that act and getting the person prosecuted. You don't need any order of court or any other intervention of the court to do that, But I'm looking at it again from the point of view of international law. Maybe for the government to be seen to have satisfied its international obligations under the different conventions relating to the taking of hostages under international law, the convention for the funding of terrorism, and all the administrative, judicial, and international efforts at the UN Global Terrorism Strategy, which also is meant to enhance and promote national, regional, international efforts to counter terrorism. We are also looking at it from the point of view of the United Nations Global Counterterrorism Strategy of the 8th September 2006, of which Nigeria is also a participant and a signatory. The plan of action that was put forward by the Secretary General of the United Nations in 2016, also where international efforts will now be geared towards coming in to ensure that these groups are crushed. That could be a pointer in that direction, and probably a mere government declaration may not work as effectively as one that is coming through the courts. But then the court is doing a yeoman's job as far as I'm concerned, because it is not its duty or responsibility to make any declaration of criminality before the government can come to bear its fangs against anybody who is seen doing things the other way.
Well, is that argument really tenable that government might be trying to hide behind the court order? Because the application was filed by government.
Yes, the Director of Public Prosecution,
precisely.
The Ministry of Justice, of the Attorney General's office.
It's highly unlikely that even the Attorney General would have taken that decision without the go-ahead, the express permission of Mr. President himself.
No,
I think precisely. The DPP even brought that up as well.
Yes.
That the President has signed off
Yes.
on this. So doesn't that render the argument somewhat neat that the government is trying to hide behind the court order?
I wouldn't want to look at it that way. Except, for instance, if you go back and look at the different acts of inertia, reluctance on the part of government to take very bold steps in stopping the activities of these groups. One will also say they got to a stage that some of us felt maybe there's some complicity by government, but I don't think it's coming behind that. It's simply that probably, like I said, I use the word again, subterfuge. Subterfuge to get something done without a direct intervention of the federal government. And it goes back to what you say, that probably it's hiding under the court order. It could be true, it could be correct, but it's still subterfuge, like I said.
Back to the line. Tell her how to fight to welcome. Hello.
Hello.
All right, go ahead.
Just a quick one, please. I want to find out from Barrister Oguche, should we depend on the law or the military to win the war against terror? Should we rely on the law?
That's an interesting question.
Or should we rely on the military
question.
to end in Nigeria? Thank you,
sir. The law has no enforcement. The law has enforcement powers, I know, but it can only enforce through the acts of the military and security forces, the police, the DSS, and what have you. The law could say a thing, and if the authorities are reluctant, the persons who are supposedly obligated to ensure that the law is implemented or enforced may refuse to do a thing, and the law becomes just an ass. It becomes a very fertile ground for the criminal activities to begin to fecund. We depend more on the actions of government. It's not just going to court to obtain the order of courts and to give a different labeling to these bandits, but the direct consequence of going after the terrorists that totally and completely in all its essence and ramification. Just a few days ago, the government made up its mind and sent troops along Kaduna-Abuja road. And now the whole place is cleared. They've almost cleared all the terrorists operating along that way. That kind of resolve, that kind of determination from government, it supersedes whatever order of court we have. Could come in, there are millions and hundreds of every court in the land. If government is not determined to stop something, it will not stop.
I watched some morning program on the national TV station this morning, and one of the guests echoed your sentiments just now, saying if we can amass or gather about 30,000 security operatives to go to one state for an election, you can gather 30,000, 40,000 security operatives and match them to some place and level and get rid of criminal elements if you really want to.
Look at, for instance, the reaction of government to the NSAS protests and how they went about it. You expected that kind of initiative to be taken with these bandits. If the government put in that kind of effort, the effort they put it into submerging the NSAS protests, I don't think we'll be talking about this now. I just give the example of the Abuja-Kaduna imbroglio, the terrorist activity that's been going on there for quite some time. It's beginning to acquire some bit of notoriety. And just some couple of days ago, the government determined and went after them and crushed almost everything there. That's how it's supposed to be. And when government gets to be reluctant or gets to be clay-footed or half-hearted or lukewarm over such actions, you begin to raise eyebrows. Then, of course, you begin to think, for instance, your words that is coming under the blanket of a court order, and then a leeway, and a subterfuge that we're talking about. So it could be both a leeway or a subterfuge, but I think it all boils down on not just the order of court, like the last caller said, but reliance upon the determination of government, of the security forces, of the authorities responsible to stop this menace once and for all.
So I'll take a few messages via WhatsApp now. Good afternoon. I'm wondering why our government should follow their hand and watch a particular sector of individuals kill and burn properties of innocent civilians while they wait for the order of the court to declare them terrorists before they take action. It's a pity. That's from Victor Marcus. Let's see. Also via WhatsApp. Top of the evening, declaring bandits terrorist organizations will not solve the insecurity confronting the government of the day. They should do the needful, and the needful will bring out the result, and the entire country will be at peace. That's my take. Labeling bandits terrorists will not bring an end to banditry. Will it bring an end to banditry? The answer is no. Must we label them terrorists before we can flush them out? The answer is no. Now that federal government has labeled them terrorist groups, will the military change their strategy in dealing with them? The answer is no. As for me, labeling them terrorist groups will not change anything because there is no sincerity in this APC-led government to bring an end to any form of terrorist in Nigeria. That's from Chile. I'm a skeptic, though the name terrorist has been slammed on these criminal gangs. I believe sincerely that all the arms of the military will not do the needful by using maximum force on them. That's from Bassi Inyong. Please, the guys tried, and okay, let's see. Good evening. Declaring bandits as terrorists is mere theatre. When some bandits, come terrorists from Nigeria, were arrested in Dubai, the FG sent a legal representation and they'll be how to plead their case. Mere theatre cosmetic. That's of Nathan Kire. I can't say that I'm aware of that situation though, but maybe we need to look into that. Hello, Hard Factor, welcome.
Yes, Dayo, good evening.
Alright, go on.
Yeah, Dayo, declaring a bandit terrorist group, that one is just, I don't know, it's a repetition. And it's just to repeat what they are supposed to be done. If anybody is committing crime in any form, that person is a terrorist, no matter how you want to define it. But having said that, it's still a weapon development. Let's define it at that level and flush them out. But the issue is how to, bring security to Nigeria. Nigeria government at all levels need to industrialize they need to make this place a working environment. To engage the youth, engage the people. When you engage the people, this terrorism will reduce drastically. It's not a magic. If you're fighting people who doesn't have anything to do, you are just wasting your time. Those who are angry, they will carry arms, they will do this and that. So why not create the opportunity to reduce the insecurity in Nigeria? That's the angle I'm looking at it. It's not enough to declare them terrorists and at the end of the day, you say you're fighting them. Create jobs so that the youth will be engaged. That's the angle I'm looking at it, Dayo.
Alright, so via Facebook, it may come on your goes. It's actually coming late in my estimation because these guys have made good sums of money, but also acquired lots of weapons for themselves in recent times. I doubt if this declaration will be followed with appropriate actions. And back to WhatsApp. Good evening, that federal government declaring the bandits as terrorists is senseless to me because it will have no effect on them. Sheikh Gumi has already told us that declaring them a terrorist will worsen the situation. There's no positive will by the government to cross the bandits. One day is enough to end the so-called banditry if government wishes so. Banditry is not ending soon despite the tag. That's from Emeka Valentin. Is it that the government is afraid of the bandits more than the Biafran agitators for this double standard approach? Meanwhile, the government and Gumi have always known where these criminals are, even know their names that we didn't know till now. That's from Uche. Well, Uche, government did go to court as well, got an order of court to prescribe IPOB and declare them terrorists. I'm not sure what you may be referring to as double standards precisely. However, we have to wrap social barrister. So, they've been termed terrorists now. Whilst you are no security expert, I believe your expertise lies more with the legal perspectives of matters. However, what is your take on the position of some of the respondents that tagging them a terrorist organization will have little or no consequence as to how government tackles these criminal elements going forward?
Yes, I think I answered that question earlier. I made reference to the United Nations instruments on counterterrorism and the UN Global Strategy on Counterterrorism and its implications to the strategy that's been embodied into these conventions towards ensuring that terrorist activities are caught globally. I think given that label will give some bit of attraction of those in charge at the United Nations office to get directly involved in some of these actions in spite of whatever explanations government will give. But then within our domestic entity, I don't think it will have any much effect except the government completely determined and obligated to the citizens to protect them, which is their first responsibility. It's not just giving them that tag alone. It goes beyond the tag, because we have seen also that the military does not act on its own volition. Well, after all, there's a commander-in-chief and the in-chief of the armed forces. And we also saw in the Kaduna Abuja district that it's not that the capacity or capability of the military to crush these terrorist groups is not there. It's just simply that, well, government tells them what to do and they do it. And I think this time around they should be given some bit of discretion to exercise their prowess in terms of defending the territorial integrity of this country. Because these terrorist activities is not only a threat to the lives and security of those internally, but also to the general sovereign status of the country. So the military should be given a free hand to operate without recourse to any high quarters, and maybe you should have less of those of them at the top calling those of them below to maybe free one of these or do this or do that in that way. The military must be professional and properly positioned. I believe that if all things are put together in their proper perspectives, the Nigerian military has the capacity and the capability to crush all these array of terrorism, banditry, or whatever name you call it, in a few days. They have that capacity, and that's authority. They have the capacity, it's only that they lack the authority. They don't have the authority to do that. And most importantly, I think the comprehensive approach is very, very important. It's just very important also to empower the existing national security counterterrorism measures, and also there must be a systematic preventive step to address the underlying conditions that push people, especially the young men, into joining groups, into joining terrorist groups and joining violent gangs. I think that's what last call I was talking about. Creating jobs for the boys, making life level for everybody, and make life generally okay for Nigerians. If there's no hunger, people will not get angry, people will not have recourse to all that, which are very important.
And now that the bandits or the bandit groups have been termed terrorists, I imagine Shugmi may not be able to speak for them any longer.
He's looking for them. He told the world that the thing is dead on arrival. He's saying it authoritatively as though he's in charge.
Maybe you can speak for bandits, but I don't think you can speak for terrorists.
Well, he said that his own bandits are not are not terrorists.
Well, we have to wrap it up on that.
That tells us who the government go after.
We'll have to wrap it up on that.
Right.
Thanks for joining the conversation. We're talking about, of course, declaring bandits groups terrorists in the country. My guest, Barrister Festus Oguche. Barrister, many thanks for your time as well.
Thanks a lot, Dayo. Thanks.
Commercial break right now to support the Art News update. After that, Serap is suing Mr. President and asking the court to order that those responsible for the what's been termed the Lekki Gate massacre are prosecuted. Kola Serap, for that conversation. Please stay with us.